This is a truly impressive room. This is wonderful to see everyone. I was at one of these events one time with the governor and Senator Lanza. And Senator Lanza was wearing an expensive tie, and the governor actually took the tie and kept it. Those of you who know me, you'll never mistake me for a fashion plate. But on the off chance, and Andy is actually known for his sartorial splendor with the exception of his sneakers tonight, I didn't want to take that chance, so I wore a pretty ugly tie on the off chance that the governor might want it. Andrew Lanza looked at me and said, "Mission accomplished." So it is my pleasure to introduce the governor, but before I do that, I want to introduce some of my colleagues. You will be hearing, obviously from the governor, you'll be hearing from Senator Andrew Lanza in a little while, my brother. You will be hearing from Assemblyman Mike Cusick also, Assemblymember Michael Cusick. We have with us State Senator Diane Savino. Assemblymember Matthew Titone. Assemblymember Ron Castorina. We have our District Attorney for Richmond County, Michael McMahon. We have my predecessor, the great Borough President, James P. Molinaro. We have former Assembly Member, and please hold the applause to a low, low roar, for Lou Tobacco. We have Commissioner Basil Sigos. Department of Environmental Conservation. We have our very own Lisa Bova-Hyatt, who is the Executive Director of the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery. And we have Colonel David Caldwell from the Army Corps of Engineers. Thank you guys for being here. This is the second or third time that I have had the privilege of introducing Governor Cuomo. And on each occasion, I can't help, and I couldn't help but think of how much of a kick my dad would have gotten seeing this. When I see the governor, I can't help but think of our fathers. A few years ago, I lost my dad, and I had this surreal experience of standing there and eulogizing him. And a year or so later, I sat in my office at Borough Hall, and I watched our governor eulogize his dad. And it was an incredibly poignant moment. It was a speech that was written down as he was instructed by his dad, and it was incredibly powerful. Politics is a rough and tumble business. Politics is important, but these skirmishes are fleeting. Party affiliation, political philosophies, ideology, they all have their place. But those of us who are privileged to be in public service, our mission is to get things done. And for those of you who might think that's cliche or that's naive, it's the approach I've taken my entire career, and I think it's been a productive one. And if you represent Staten Island, that's the approach you need to take. So I had 2 meetings at City Hall this morning, and we had 2 other ones. I canceled them because I wanted to be here when the governor comes to Staten Island. I should be here when the governor comes to Staten Island. And I want to hear what he has to say because I know he is going to continue to help us. Sandy and the Sandy recovery has been the most infuriating, frustrating event, time period, experience of my professional career. And from early on, weeks, the 3rd week, we started questioning some of the decision-making coming out of the city. Vinny Ignizio, the former councilman, and I went down to New Orleans 5 months after Sandy, and we met with authorities down there who went through Katrina. And they asked the question, who's going to have the money? Is it the city or the state? And at that time, we didn't know. When you're a Staten Islander, you want local control. But I have to tell you, having dealt with this for the last 4+ years, I wonder if we would have been better off if everything went through the state. I appreciate so much what the governor and his team have done for this borough. I appreciate Jamie Rubin and everything he has done. I appreciate Lisa Bova-Hyatt and Alex. So when the governor of the state of New York comes here, usually good things come with it. And I'm anxious to hear from the governor. Governor, I appreciate so much the help It has been a difficult time, but I know it has been one of great importance to you and your team, and we look forward to hearing from you today. Ladies and gentlemen, the great governor of the great state of New York, Andrew Cuomo.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First, it's my pleasure to be back on Staten Island. A lot of friends, a lot of good memories. I'm a Queens boy, but a lot of good friends on Staten Island. So it's good to be back. First, your borough president. Let's give him a round of applause. He's doing a beautiful job. He is really someone special. And then you heard them acknowledged, but one more time, because they're my colleagues in Albany, and they're doing a great job, and they just passed a great budget, part of which we're going to sign today. Let's give them a round of applause. Senator Savino and Assemblyman Cusick and Assemblyman Titone and Assemblyman Castorina. The Richmond County District Attorney, Mike McMahon. Let's give him a round of applause. The legend, Borough President Molinaro, pleasure to be with you. And I left Andrew Lanza for last. I did. I left him for last. Why? Well, because there's a tension here, I want you to know. It has nothing to do with politics. It has nothing to do with ideology. I become governor. I'm there. And maybe the first time I meet Senator Lanza, he comes up and he says, you know, we have to talk about something. I said, fine, whatever you want to talk about, it'd be my pleasure to talk. Open door, transparency, I believe in all of that. Across the aisle. He said, you know, it's causing confusion that your name is Andrew and my name is Andrew. I said, really? He said, yes. And we're both Italian, and we're both from downstate, so it's causing confusion. And I said, what would you suggest? He said, I don't think you need to use the name Andrew. I said, really? Why? He says, well, because now your first name is Governor, so I think you can drop Andrew, and it'll end all the confusion. I said, why should I drop Andrew? Why don't you drop Andrew and pick another name? He says, oh, I was here first, and that's why you should drop Andrew. That is the kind of grit that your senator brings. I have a different word than grit, but I don't want to say it. But that is the grit, if you know what I mean, that he brings. Senator Lanza is a great friend of mine. We do a lot of good work. And on the tough issues, when it takes a smart person who's reasonable to work it out and get it done, that's when they call in Senator Lanza, whatever his first name. Let's give him a round of applause. And we're here to talk about a stronger Staten Island. The borough president, as usual, did a great job framing the topic. And being stronger nowadays means being more resilient. Why? We can sit here and say, well, Hurricane Sandy, that was 1 in 100 years. It's never going to happen again. I have been through, in my short term as governor, about 10 1 in 100 year occurrences. That's what they always say. This is a 1 in 100 year flood. Yeah, except it happens twice a year. Climate change, extreme weather, whatever you want to call it, it is an undeniable reality, but that the weather pattern has changed all around the world and in New York. It defies facts to say, no, these all happen to be random episodes. This past year, 7 feet of snow in Buffalo, New York. Highest amount of snow that has ever fallen in Buffalo, New York. Now, it snows in Buffalo, but not 7 feet. This past weekend, I was on Lake Ontario. Lake Ontario is on the northern border of New York, between New York and Canada, 1,000 miles of coastline. Highest level in the lake ever recorded in history. It's coming right over the seawall. It's flooding homes. I was at a house that was washed away in a flood in central New York. It had been there for 100 years. Multi-generations, never a drop of water in the basement. And then the house was gone. We have hurricanes in New York. We never had hurricanes. We have typhoons in New York. We never had typhoons. Floods in places we never had it before. There is a different weather pattern. Now, we can either say, I deny it, or it's all randomness, or you can learn from it, and you can grow from it, and you can get prepared for it. Now, one of the lessons we learned from Hurricane Sandy, and we learned a number. We're building houses now that are raised on piles. We had a flood. We lost all gasoline and gas stations. If you remember, we had to do rationing, etc. Why? Because the gas was in the tanks in the gas stations, but the gas stations didn't have electricity. So now we've mandated gas stations to have generators on site. We have reserve fuel deposits. On the state side, my colleagues and I have purchased rescue equipment and pre-positioned it all across the state. So we never have to go through that again. Boats, high-axle vehicles, et cetera, so we can save lives. The way we're building buildings has changed. And here on Staten Island, we determined after Sandy that the shoreline is vulnerable to storms, period. And it can be Sandy or it can be something else, but we should expect a reoccurrence of that vulnerability. And the smart idea was, let's build a seawall to block the vulnerable part of the island on the southern side. And that is a smart idea. And when you look at it, it's 7 miles, South Beach, Midland Beach, goes from Oakwood to Fort Wadsworth. And I was here during Sandy, and I was in Oakwood, and I was working with those families. Borough President Molinaro at that time did a phenomenal job, as did all your elected officials. But we saw how ugly and mean Mother Nature can be. Now, the 7-foot wall, as proposed by the Army Corps of Engineers, is what? It's a wall. When they say a wall, they mean a wall. Believe me, they're in the Army. They're very specific, those people. They say we're going to build a wall. They're going to build a wall. What is the function of the wall? The function of the wall is to hold back the water. So you build a wall, you put a lot of big rocks in front of it, and now you have a wall that holds back the water. That's very nice. This is supposed to be 7 feet long, 7 miles long, this wall, okay? So that's a possible option. The state is going to pay $150 million towards the wall. And we're going to sign a bill when we finish speaking here that is going to put $150 million towards the wall. And it's our honor to work with the Army Corps of Engineers on the wall. The question becomes, what do you want to build? And this is the functional wall. But the question is really, is this the best we can do, right? We're going to build a 7-mile structure. Just think of it. And it's going to be visible. And it's going to be there forever. And our children are going to see it, and our grandchildren are going to see it. 7 miles, all sorts of neighborhoods, thousands of homes are going to be out looking at this wall, right? So the question really becomes, what do we want to build? Borough President mentioned my father. My grandfather, my father's father was Andrea, and that's where I got my name. And I was maybe 12 years old, and my grandfather was going to build a patio in the back of the house in Queens. My father was busy because he was workaholic, but my grandfather was going to build a patio. and I'm helping him at 12 years old. The last thing I wanted to do was help my grandfather build a patio, right? And he's getting ready to build the patio. He's a very methodical man, and he was a magician with masonry, and he has me carrying in all this slate and all these forms for the cement and all these different trowels, this size, scallop trowel. And I said to him, Grandpa, why don't we just pour a bed of cement and go home? You know, why do we need all the slates, all these different forms? He said, because this is going to be here for a long, long time. And yeah, functionally, you can just pour cement. That's all. And now you have a patio. Or you can pour the cement and then put in the slate and then draw decorations in the concrete and then put a scallop edge, and now you have a piece of art. And now you have a statement that says something about you and who you are. And you have something that actually enhances the value of the home. So it's not just art. It's also a smart financial investment. So is the wall the best thing we can do with $613 million? That is a lot of escarole, $613 million. Is that wall the best we can do? My answer is no. Let's not think about building a wall. Let's think about building a promenade instead of a wall, okay? And start to see where your mind goes. You can build the wall, but on top of the wall, why don't we build a boardwalk? And why don't we really think about this as an attraction rather than just as a functional device? A boardwalk, you can bicycle, you can ride, you could have vending stations, you could have benches, you could have shaded areas. We're going to spend $150 million from the state, $600 million altogether. Let's build something that enhances the island and enhances all the homes that are going to be looking at the promenade. When it comes to the Oakwood section, let's make that a nature preserve. And let's have trails going through that connect to the promenade. I think we could build something that could really be a major enhancement to the whole island. I think homes that are near that promenade could actually go up in value. It's part of the island that we're trying to redevelop, right? And we're trying to bring back strong. I think it can be a locational asset to the homes that are located next to it. And I think it could improve the quality of life. I think it could be an attraction for the entire island. I think it could be an attraction for the city. When you think about it, 7 miles long. Manhattan's High Line, which has been a phenomenal success, it's 1.3 miles long. Well, we go to Jones Beach Boardwalk, 2 miles long, Jones Beach. We're talking about 7 miles here. Coney Island, 2.7. Rockaway, 5.5 miles. It'd be one of the longest boardwalk promenades in the city of New York, right? And still do its function. The question then is, who should design it? Now, I have some design ideas myself that I wanted to share with you today. Do you remember those plastic flamingos that they used to have with it? How beautiful were they? Tell the truth. And they're gone. I don't know what happened. They were in everybody's front yard. They had a nice stick. It went in, pink, right next to the saint. It was beautiful. You can't find those flamingos anywhere. I say we bring back those flamingos on this boardwalk every few feet. Okay, so you don't want me designing the boardwalk, I can tell. I was kidding about the flamingos. I don't even like live flamingos, let alone plastic ones. The people of the Staten Island should design that boardwalk because it's going to be yours. So what we're going to do is New York State's going to begin a series of presentations and community forums all throughout the island. We'll have sketches, we'll have designs, we'll share them with communities. Commissioner Basil Sagos is the Commissioner of the Department of Environmental Conservation. Borough President had a little trouble with his name. It's not an Italian name, it's understandable. And he's going to do a series of community forums. And I really believe this is going to be something special. And it's something that people should pay attention to and really put some thought into it. Because at the end of the day, and I'll end where the borough president started, public service is about what? Public service is about using government as a vehicle to do good things. But it's not just public service. Every parent, every citizen has one fundamental obligation: to leave this place better than we found it, right? It's all about leaving. It's about leaving our children a better home than we found it. Leaving New York stronger, fairer, sweeter than we found it. And making them proud that this is their home. That's what this project should be all about to me. And it's what we're trying to do all across the state of New York. We're in the process of redoing the Verrazano now, where we have cashless tolling. Why do you still have to stop at a toll booth, right? Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, we're redoing back to the original architecture that was really magnificent, because when they built, they cared. We're building a new LaGuardia Airport. Why? Because I'm ashamed to walk into this LaGuardia Airport. That's why. A new John F. Kennedy Airport. Leave our children a better place, a stronger place, a more resilient place, a place they can be proud of. I still walk back to the patio in Queens, and I see the slate, and I see the design, and I see the artistry that was in my grandfather. Simple man, never graduated high school, but he was an artist, and he cared about what he did, and he wanted to make a contribution, and that's how he made a contribution. This is how we can make a contribution. We're going to not just build a wall, we're going to build a promenade, and we're going to make Staten Island better than Staten Island has ever been, and we're going to do it by working together. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much. My name is Andrew Lanza. Andrew Lanza, and I have the privilege of representing the people of Staten Island in the New York State Senate. And first, I just want to, on behalf of the people of Staten Island, say thank you from the bottom of our hearts, Governor Mark Cuomo. That's his middle name. It's a wonderful name. Anyway, I have my reason for calling him Mark. Really, we all in this room just witnessed, and I think if you really paid attention, you've come to know what I have learned over the years serving with this governor, that we are incredibly blessed and fortunate in this state to have Governor Andrew Cuomo serve us. He is he's super intelligent. He cares. He has incredible experience. And I've spent many a night in Albany working very closely with him and my colleagues, Assemblyman Cusick, Senator Savino, Assemblyman Titone, Castorina. But I've watched him. You know, these days, a lot of people out there don't want you to work together. He's a Democrat, I'm a Republican. Some people get upset when I call him a friend. When I talk about how great a governor he is, tough luck. People didn't send me to Albany to fight. They sent me there to get the job done. As the borough president said, that's what we do here on Staten Island. Projects like this, which the governor embraced and made a reality, they may not get a lot of clicks on that computer mouse, and so they often go unreported. And there are, even worse, a lot of politicians who, because of that, say, let's not do it. Let's continue with the politics of division. People eat it up. But the reality is, it's only a few people that eat it up. There are only a few people maliciously tapping that mouse. The majority of the people want us to get the job done and deliver. And as the governor just said, leave this place a little better than we found it. And, you know, Staten Island is surrounded by water. Now, before Jimmy Otto calls me Captain Obvious, I say that for a reason. Because as long as I've been living here my whole life, it seems like that very simple fact has eluded city planners. And as the governor mentioned, it seems as though the storms are coming with greater frequency. It's hard to tell, but I think we feel that. But nevertheless, with frequency, and every so often, Mother Nature conspires with the Atlantic Ocean to violate our shores. There was a hurricane in 1950 that hit Staten Island. There was an extratropical storm in 1953. I don't know what that means, Governor, but it was a storm. There were hurricanes in 54. There was a nor'easter in 62, Hurricane Donna in 60. There was a serious storm in 1966, 77, the nor'easter of 1992, and I'm going to get back to that one. And then, of course, Hurricane Sandy. And throughout that entire history, you didn't hear much from the planners in New York City, the electeds of New York City. They didn't say a word about it, really. Staten Island was left to fend for itself. Now people who have a newfound fascination with climate change, they'll talk now. They'll jump up and down, hair goes on fire, but still short on solutions. Well, this kind of leadership doesn't come from nowhere. There was a person once who listened. His name, and I'll get this one right, was Mario Cuomo. And after 92, that nor'easter that hit Staten Island, people were in rowboats on Highland Boulevard. I remember it as a kid. Then Governor Mario Cuomo said, we've got to do something about this. And he actually was the first person to formally start talking about a study for this seawall. He wrote a letter to the Army Corps of Engineers. Thank you, Army Corps of Engineers, for being here, our DEC commissioner. And that began the process. But again, we heard from city officials and other electeds, well, it's too big of a project. It's too difficult. We can't do it. There isn't enough money. And then we got the right guy in office. We did. And his name is Andrew Cuomo. And we're very lucky. I'm going to stop because the governor's given me the old. But for years, the city dumped on this here. When I was a kid, my father used to take me up and down the seacoast, our family, to go to beaches all over. They were always nicer than our beaches. And besides the city not understanding and appreciate that we're an island and we need to protect ourselves from these storms, it was a dumping ground. And I have to point out Jim Molinaro, as our borough president, was the first elected official around here to turn that around. So the governor pointed out the details, but this really is an incredible opportunity for us on Staten Island because of this governor. As he said, $151 million in this budget. No more excuses, no more talk, no more jumping up and down. We have a governor that understands and appreciates the needs. And by the way, this governor has really ushered in a renaissance of infrastructure projects around the state, the like of which really hasn't been seen since probably the 40s and 50s. And so for that, Governor Cuomo, we owe you. And when people say, why is it that you say you love the governor? I say, I'm going to love him as long as he continues to love the people of this state and New York, Staten Island, and the people of Staten Island. I just want to say thank you, Governor Cuomo.
Thank you. I want to thank the governor for being here today. I also want to thank him for putting the Irish guy last in the speaking order. The cleanup batter is how I'm going to describe it afterwards. But I want to, again, seriously, Governor, thank you again for being here and making this great announcement. This is a great day for Staten Island. You know, many of us in this room here today will remember about 5 years ago, we were here. You know, Jim Molinaro, borough president, called us all that morning. We all gathered out here. And at that time, it was a call to arms to get people to donate, to help out. And it went national because then borough president Jim Molinaro made it known how devastating it was here on Staten Island. And it was right out here, right outside this door. I still can remember that house right across the street here on Father Cap had a car through the bottom of it. And that morning, unfortunately, we also found out that the two little boys, the Moore brothers, right down the street. And it was the group of elected officials from Staten Island who were here asking for immediate needs. Weren't even thinking long-term yet. A couple of days, weeks, months went by. The group started thinking, how do we prevent this? How do we make our citizens, our residents, our neighbors, our friends and family safe? And I remember we reached out to Governor Cuomo, and he didn't even need us to call him to help us. He was already on the line. He was already, his presence was felt here on Staten Island, but was already thinking long term. Was already thinking how to protect the residents here on Staten Island. And this project is a perfect example of that. And I want to thank my colleagues in the legislature because, as the governor alluded to, getting through a budget's not an easy process, as we all know. Getting this through and in the budget and passed is not always easy. You would think this is simple. This makes sense. This will save lives. What the governor has just described is going to be a beautiful structure also. I'd like to put a little Irish, design in there too, though, Governor. But I have to point out that Senator Lanza, from day one, has been pushing this. There are many projects that take up our time and take up our effort in Albany, and we have to make sure that they get done. And there's many that we have to pay attention to. Andy focused on this like a laser beam. He made sure that this was on the fast track, that this was in this budget. This would not be done, and I'm not just saying this because he's a friend and a colleague, but this would not be done if he had not focused on this. This is so monumental, this wall, because it will save lives as we go forward. And we will remember those who were lost, and that's why this is so important. So again, I want to thank all my colleagues because this is not easy getting this done. I want to thank the residents. I want to thank the folks who are on the ground every day here in the East Shore of Staten Island. It's your input that helped move this forward, and I want to thank you for that. And again, Governor Cuomo, this is a great day for Staten Island because you made it a great day for Staten Island. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. At this time, I think we're going to come up and sign the bill, the budget bill.
Guys, come on up here. One more table here. Everybody tight? All right. Kevin right here. Hey, Good. Congratulations.